and hello to anyone who might be listening. In this video, I'm going to talk about a controversial topic, for a video game, and that is body armor, why it's overpowered, and why it doesn't really matter. With that clickbait and retention bait out of the way, some house cleaning. The gameplay footage in the background is mostly filler Soviet gameplay. For full transparency, I use body armor on most of my squads at all battle ratings, partially for the damage reduction bonus, as will be explained in a little bit, and partially because I just think it looks really cool. I've been using it on most of my squads and guys since customization became available a few years ago, before most people, including myself, really knew that it gave damage reduction. Just for fun, if you really want to. See if you can actually count how many times body armor saves me in the footage. I'm pretty sure it happens at least once. So, an explanation for anyone who doesn't know what body armor is, somehow, at this point. In Enlisted, there are certain body armor cosmetics that reduce bullet damage taken to the chest and back by 10%. These cosmetics are only available to the Soviets and a single Japanese premium biker squad. There are assets for the armor for every faction in the game files, and the Germans get like an event squad with a helmet that reduces headshot damage by 83% or something. But for all intents and purposes, body armor is an advantage held exclusively by the Soviets. On its own, body armor is basically not an issue. Reducing damage by 10% only really means that unupgraded 9mm submachine guns, pistols, and battle rating 2 semi-autos will not kill as quickly. Upgraded primary weapons are more or less unaffected, excluding like hyper-specific damage thresholds at very specific ranges. For instance, the Type Otsu rifle for the Japanese becomes a two-shot kill like 10 meters sooner against targets or with body armor. Where body armor actually becomes an issue is when it's, paired with vitality, the perk. When paired with vitality, body armor forces a lot of weapons to take an extra shot to kill at point blank range, and at certain range threshold, since the damage threshold for downing an enemy target in one hit becomes 15.1, up from 13.5. An example for this would be the G41 for the Germans, or the Type 4 for the Japanese, both, at battle rating 3. They have 14.4 and 14.9 damage respectively, which isn't enough to down a Soviet target with body armor and vitality at point blank range in a single hit. On paper, this is ridiculous. An extra shot to kill may not seem like a lot, but that's doubling the time to kill for a lot of weapons. For submachine guns, it goes up by 50%, which isn't as dramatic for fast-firing weapons, but it's still really frustrating. I can tell you, as somebody that uses body armor, that it is game-changing, overpowered, and has saved me innumerable, that's a good word, times in situations where I would have otherwise died. In a combat scenario where you run into an opponent and you both react to each other at roughly the same time within human capabilities, and you begin shooting, that extra shot to kill makes all the difference in the world and gives you that tiny little window to survive, down, and kill your opponent and his squad. There's really no genuine honest denying that body armor is explicitly overtly overpowered and an unfair advantage exclusively held by the Soviets. I see, this is the controversial part. Does it matter? See, if you believe the community, from the subreddit to the forums to just random Discord servers and matches, body armor is apparently a hyper-pervasive problem that just dominates the entire game. Facing the Soviets is just an endless horde of enemy troops equipped with body armor and vitality. Every battle is a slog against these unkillable golems who shrug off bullets by the bucket load and push into your spawn with impunity, laughing mockingly as they come to liberate your friends and family. But I have 750 or so matches as the Germans, and, this is just me. But I can probably count on two hands how many instances of body armor and vitality combined I can actually remember affecting me and the outcome of a match, or even just a single gunfight. What follows isn't super scientific, but I decided to run a little bit of a study on how common body armor and vitality actually is, combined, since body armor on its own basically doesn't do anything, which I have to state over and over again, and how frequently it appears on Soviet teams. It was, pretty simple and a bit lazy. I spectated a lot of random replays, focusing on matches that were in Stalingrad and Berlin, battle rating 3 and above, and had a majority PC players. No offense console players, but PC players are more likely to be in the know from my experience. I ended up downloading and watching some 30 matches because I have nothing better to do with my time apparently. I eliminated 20 or so of those matches, considering them to not really be representative, as they were either too low in battle rating or the players just seemed not skilled enough. For clarification, none of those matches that I eliminated had a single instance of body armor and vitality. Anyway, once I was spectating a match, I'd wait for every Soviet player to spawn in their first squad, then check out to see if they had body armor equipped on their whole squad, which implied intentionality. They had actually equipped it on purpose and it wasn't just random cosmetics. If they had body armor equipped, I would note that down, then I would wait for them to get damaged, then see if they had vitality equipped as well. If they had body armor and vitality equipped, I wrote that down as a separate category from just body armor on its own. I would then skip ahead into the match and do the same thing, checking the squads of the Soviet team to see if they had body armor equipped and so on and so forth. I did this over, in total, 30 matches, but only 10 that count. In the 10 matches that I opted to actually include in my quote-unquote study, strong word, I found that an astounding, shocking, game-breaking number of players actually used body armor and vitality in conjunction. The total number of players using body armor and vitality together was 2. 2 players. Out of 100 players, 300, if you choose to include those matches that I personally eliminated, 2 who were in a pre-made together were actually using body armor and vitality at the same time. Additionally, like 2 players were using body armor without vitality on all their squads, which doesn't do anything. Chances are they just sort of looked cool, or they heard it gave damage reduction and equipped it without understanding how it really doesn't matter. This lines up with my own experiences. You can call this a bit of a bias, but I don't really care. This is my stupid video on my stupid study, so I do what I want. Body armor, as a mechanic, effectively does not exist outside of an extremely niche section of the community that obsesses over esoteric mechanics. This tiny, tiny portion of players actually using body armor becomes even more minuscule when you realize that, in fact, the Americans are significantly more popular than the Soviets, according to the data we actually have regarding what equipment and what weapons are popular. And, the Americans are like the most popular faction at low tiers with console players. And that means that the majority of your matches as the Germans and the Japanese will be against the Americans. Your average player is only going to run into an instance of body armor every several dozen matches, if that, while playing as the Germans or the Japanese. In my own matches recently, I ran into some people who were intentionally using body armor on their entire squads, but when I actually bothered to check out their gameplay in the replays, they weren't using vitality with it, rendering it effectively meaningless. This kind of brings me to my actual point. Not only is body armor exceptionally rare, it is mostly used on its own and incidentally as default customizations, without vitality backing it up. As I said, again, without vitality, body armor doesn't really do anything. It very slightly shifts very specific damage thresholds on unupgraded, low BR guns at specific ranges that most people are not going to be engaging in firefights at. To complain about body armor as a mechanic is missing the forest for the trees. The issue isn't body armor, it's vitality. Without vitality, increasing the backing HP by 35%, body armor is just a silly little curio that makes pistol kills slightly more difficult if for some reason you are shooting at people at full HP with a pistol without aiming for their heads at close range. Vitality, on the other hand, is relatively common across all factions and battle ratings above battle rating 1 at this point. It massively, massively shifts the time to kill and damage thresholds of vast, vast swathes of weapons at most ranges in most gameplay situations. But I ask you this. How many people who complain about the mean, nasty body armor for those filthy, dumb Vatniks actually want vitality nerfed, or God forbid, removed? I would say none. Absolutely none. Because none of these people who bitch and whine about an esoteric, excessively rare mechanic being used by a subset of autists like myself would actually want their own pressure disadvantages taken away. So what's the solution to this? I don't know. Body armor doesn't matter. Nerf it. I don't care. Get rid of it. Make it exclusive to Event Premium squads. Who really cares? I like how it looks. But I know some people who do use it only because of opportunity cost. Because if they use any other customization, they miss out on that 10% damage reduction. So getting rid of it or kneecapping it would open them up to using more varied customization. What really matters is vitality and perks in a broader sense, which massively disrupt Enlisted's gameplay. Vitality, recoil reduction, sprint speed. They open the gap between new players and experienced players massively, and not through skill, but through burden of knowledge and time spent playing. My personal preference would be to see vitality and recoil reduction nerfed, but really, that will never happen because most of the community is fine with having their own special little advantages over the filthy subhuman plebs. They just don't like when there are advantages that they personally do not have access to. None of these people ever complain about the Japanese getting access to swords on every soldier that allow them to move at blistering speeds that other factions cannot keep up with, or the Germans having access to the largest variety of powerful, varied weapons in the game, as well as the best tank and the best auto rifle at top tier. No, none of that matters. What actually matters is 1 to 2% of Soviet players using an esoteric mechanic. That's all for now. Recoil reduction to Lender Est.
Никакой пощады! Победа будет за нами! Ура! Вперед! Никакой пощады! За Родину! Это свой! Бой! Умри, наконец! Ура! За Родину! Победа будет за нами! Ура! Вперед! Ура! Победа будет за нами! Ура! Бой! Отставить огонь, он свой! Ура! За Родину! Получи, пап! Никакой пощады! Ура! Никакой пощады!